Hello, people. It's what is it? It's pushing 10 a.m. 9:40 a.m. Today is 11 July.
Standard time.
That's not standard. It's daylight time. You ruined the surprise. I was gonna pan to the left.
I'm good at surprises.
It's Squid. We're at work, ish. So first and foremost, there is a brother that needs our help. So actually two of them, and one of them y'all are gonna help if you're in the Northeast. His name is Philip Weston, and he contacted the APN, Arkansas Preparedness Network. He follows Pastor Joe. He also is mentally deranged enough to follow us, and boy, I hope he's not taking to heart what we have to say. That would be terrible for you. But he runs a Facebook group called the Southern New England Preparedness Network for people in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So, look, see, I took a note. So if you're in Rhode Island, Connecticut, or Massachusetts, go on Facebook and look up the Southern New England Preparedness Network. He's trying to grow that group. He has a heart for helping people, much like the APN does. And so Brother Gordy, I believe it was Brother Gordy, reached out, sent me an email, and was like, you need to give this guy a shout out and help him build his empire of dirt. So Philip, good luck, brother. Shoot us an email, and we'll talk some more, and if we can help you more, we will. Now, next, we got an email from Adam S. I'm not going to give your last name. Nobody needs your last name. But Adam sent us an email, and I forwarded it to you so that you could look through it. And he had a two-pronged concern, a two-pronged consideration. The video that I shot called A Sense of Purpose. And I'm going to paraphrase his email. He was basically saying he's 34 years old now, and when he was 17, he wanted to join the Marine Corps with his buddy, and he was medically disqualified, and his buddy ended up going into the Corps, and he now has a sense of regret over having not served and wanted to know our thoughts on joining the military at age 34, but also wanted to know how one properly discerns the Father's will for your life, and is he being selfish by wanting to join the military at 34 years old and not following the Father's will? So we decided we were going to answer that question to the best of our broken ability.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, first thing I would say, and not many people have known this, very a handful, but we were told that Elijah had immunity disorder. I don't know, shortly after we got back from the hospital. And I got home from work, and my wife's bawling on the bed because she was like, what else is it that we can handle? Like, what else is going to be thrown at us? And I sat there in silence for, I don't know how long, but I just looked at her and I said, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have that. I said, I hit my knees and I thanked the Father for the healthy baby he was going to give us. This baby's healthy. He doesn't have it. And so he had to do a retest at 2 weeks, and I just got a call from my wife, and he is perfectly healthy.
yep.
And so I think that follows the lines of the question of are you listening? Are you hearing the Father's voice? I think there's different ways that he talks to people.
Yep.
For me, it's about keeping my eyes and ears open and seeing the signs that are out there.
Absolutely.
I feel like I got a grasp on it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, but I know there's times I mess up. I think if there's something that is going to need to happen in your life, that God wants to happen in your life, he's going to repeatedly punch you in the chest or whatever signal it is that you get, until you figure it out and do it. I mean, just like me and my old consulting job, everything was perfect. Like growing huge revenue, great client. I mean, growing work, and I was just getting attacked from all sides.
Yeah.
In the previous 3 years, I had been asking, okay, Father, let me finish what I'm doing, and so I can go home. I want to go home. And for like 2 months, as I'm going through all this anguish and anxiety, and it was him poking me in the chest saying, go home. Mm-hmm. I'm done with you up here. Like,
yep.
you don't need to come here anymore. I'm done. And it finally just dawned on me. Sometimes we're stubborn, and that's what it takes. But, you know, to answer this question about, you know, whether or not, don't regret not serving. Because there are other ways to serve.
Can I jump in there for a minute?
Jump.
Okay.
Well, just don't jump on me.
So getting back to the Father's will for your life, everything in nature that's a corrective action is painful. And so a lot of times when you transgress the will of the Father, you'll feel convicted. I mean, I'm speaking personally for me. I'll go, man, I should not have done that. I knew I should not have done that. And I did it, and look what it got me, right? And so it's this painful experience, this corrective action to keep you from continuing to do that thing that you shouldn't have been doing in the first place. So it's a double-edged sword between the blessings of following His will and how to properly discern that, and then I don't want to use the word curses, but the ramifications of transgressing His will.
Well, and I'd even go as far as saying it's not corrective action as far as like, you did this, so I'm going to punish you.
Yeah, it's not retribution.
Right. It's the difference between simplicity, which is what He wants for us, versus complexity, which we cause, which causes things that make things
uncomfortable.
Suck.
Yeah.
You know, so I know I've said this before, but, you know, simplification. Simplify your life. I mean, it's where happiness is. Anywhere in my life, if I look at where I simplified things, like it was some of the best times of my life. And then I look at where I tried to just add all this stuff and it got complex and it was miserable. Right? And so I truly believe that He wants things to be simple for us because that's where happiness lies.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hard. We make it hard.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, keep your eyes and ears open. You know, it could be a passerby that just says something to you. Somebody you meet just briefly for 5 minutes, and it's a sign.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's funny. Pastor Joe, the most recent Shofar Mountain sermon, was talking about when Mary Magdalene is at the tomb of Jesus, of Yeshua, and she's like talking to the gardener. She's like, "What have you done with his body?" And he just says, "Mary." And she turns around and looks, is like, "Holy crap, it's my Lord," you know? And it begs the question, like, because apparently he didn't look like him, that she knew him physically, right? But once she just shifted her view just a little bit, and maybe there's obviously some metaphysical stuff that happened there, but just shifting her view a little bit, she was able to go, "I'm standing in the presence," right? So you don't know. I think that there's opportunities where you meet people that maybe aren't just people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know. So there's definitely people can point you in the right direction and guide you. So all right, but yeah, as far as doing the will of the Father, I think like Squid is saying, if you have your ears on and your eyes on, and you're feeling it, and you're trying, you will be led. And you just have to have the courage to act on those leadings. And it's that still small voice when you know I shouldn't do this, don't do it. I should do this, do it. Just develop the strength and courage and muscle memory to just follow that voice.
And sometimes it's that little voice in your head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had times where, and this is a stupid example, but it's funny. I was slicing onions to dehydrate last year, I don't know, a couple years ago. And I was using one of those mandolins, razor blade thing, right? And these onions this year were like these big red onions. And it was half of them, it was filling up the board. And so it was getting tough to push it through, right? It was getting hard. It was getting complex. And I'm trying to push through. And I'm like, you know, in my head I go, I should grab the guard.
Right.
And then like 2 swipes later, tip of this finger just goes straight off. Right? He was sitting there going, "Hey, stupid, use the guard."
Yep. Right? I told you.
And it's a dumb.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's like little things like that. It's almost like you feel like you had a premonition of what was going to happen.
Yes. Yep.
Like, you know what? I knew that was going to happen.
Yep.
And then once you start hearing that, you start tuning yourself into it more. I
Correct.
think.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I feel now.
Me too.
The more I've tuned myself into, you know what? I bet you if I do this, this is going to happen.
Well, the more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
You know, the more you get, the more you trust that voice, and you see the fruit of trusting that voice, the easier it gets to. Am I crazy? Am I hearing voices? No, you're not. You're not crazy. You're not hearing voices. It's there. So, all right, go back to the military thing you were going to talk about.
I mean, first, you know, was Adam, was it?
Adam S.
For Adam, hey, no regrets. All right. I mean, we're all taking on a path or a journey that may not make sense while you're on it, but someday you're going to look back and understand why and why it wasn't right for you at the time. I don't know if this is the time for you or not. You're still young enough to do it. I think you've got to listen for that voice. You know, you've got to open your eyes up and look around for the signs. There's many ways to serve, though. You don't have to put a uniform on to, you know, for that to put meaning to your life. I mean, when I retired, in my retirement speech, you know, I struggled and struggled with it because for a long time I thought, where am I going to be written in the history books?
Right.
Right? Like Battle Fallujah, whatever that I had a piece of that you know can look back. And then I'm trying to write my retirement speech in less words than Lincoln used at Gettysburg.
Right.
That was my goal.
Right.
I didn't want to be one of those guys that you're hour and a half, 2 hour long retirements and flag folding here, and then the next thing you do this thing. And then, so I think my retirement, guys came up to me afterwards and said, that's the shortest retirement I've ever been at. And so I didn't quite beat Lincoln, but one of the key things that I said in there was, you know, I was trying to figure out my legacy, and for a long time I thought it was where I would be in the history books here. And I looked out with my wife, and at the time it was just little Hayden.
Yep.
And my little B was 2.
Wow. Yep.
2 years old, and I pointed at them and said, those boys, and she was pregnant with E at the time, and I said, and we didn't know E was a boy.
Yeah.
But I was like, those boys right there, how they turn out,
that's your legacy.
is what my legacy is. I'm irregardless of if I'm never remembered. And so that's been my focus since about that time, 2012-ish. It was about 2 years after I started kind of opening my eyes up a little bit, and that's when I started prepping. It was around 2010.
Yeah.
You know, and so my eyes were starting to open up more and more and more, and I was starting to soak in a lot more alternative things. But then that's where also my focus became from being selfish to trying to be selfless.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, we're all going to still be selfish at times, but I try to be selfless. I would say for you, you know, whatever times you're going through, there are opportunities around you to be selfless and be led. I think you need to figure out and see the signs about if that's a right move for you or not. I mean, I know you got some family trouble happening, because you don't want it to be that you're running away.
Yeah.
There's too many people who, you know, think, oh, the next city,
Yeah.
the next job, the next.
You're the same you.
It's the old adage, the grass is greener. Well, I'm going to tell you this, 99.99% of the time, that grass is not greener on the other side of the fence.
Yep.
It isn't. You have expectations that it will be, and so we get expectations that are well over what reality is.
Yep.
So part of it too is managing expectations. I mean, because, you know, just for you, Adam, you know, you think, oh, hey, I'm going to jump into the military and man, it's going to be go, go, go. Dude, like 95 or 90% of the time, it's like slow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I look back on my career and maybe get 5% that was just
Yep.
bad ass, like exciting stuff, you know. So I would say, you know, you need to measure what you think you're going to expect out of it. Try to listen to the Father's voice. on whether or not that's the right decision, and don't be running away from something. You know, there may be things that you need to do where you're at right now, or it could be that you do need to do this. But, you know, just have faith. And that's the hardest thing. Have faith that you are going to be led.
I think it's really good. You're asking the right questions. I think it's really good that you're trying to hear the Father's voice. That your question is, how do I know if I'm hearing the Father's voice? That is a step in the right direction for sure. You're on the right path with that. Something that popped into my mind.
Well, I was just going to say, because that was good what you just said. It's not always that one time you hear it.
Yeah.
It's the repeatability of it.
Yep.
I mean, for me anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
I hear it over and over again. And that's what gives me faith and confidence that it's the thing I need to do.
Yeah, it's not a one-time fleeting thing.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. I was going to add that at your age, there's certain MOSs and certain specialties within the military that you're going to be disqualified from. So getting back to managing expectations, there's certain units that you're already too old to even go to selection for.
And if you go to the recruiter, they're going to try to talk you into other things.
Yeah. Yep.
And then maybe tell you stuff like, oh, once you get in, then you can do an MOS to MOS.
Yeah.
No, it's BS.
Yeah.
Like, be
careful with that. And, you know, for me, your story is very similar to my story. I wanted to join the Marine Corps, 03-11. And it's when they were still issuing the M60. And I wanted an M60. That's just what I wanted. And my uncle was Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps. And
if you went up to Minot, you could have got it.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I'll
just leave them out.
Well, you know, National Guard. Look, you guys got to do better at your security. That's all I'm gonna say. Right? So I was dead set as a 17-year-old kid on being a Marine. That's what I wanted to do. And I was medically disqualified because I'd broken my sternal plate in a logging accident, and it crushed me for like 6 months. I was just crushed, you know, because you set your eyes on something and then it doesn't happen. Well, now what? And at 17, you don't have a very long perspective. You know, you're not thinking about 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. You're like, you know, what am I going to do this summer? Maybe, you know. Yeah. So it really crushed me, and so I did the next right thing. I started a business cutting trees. And I started providing for my family and cutting timber and growing a business. And then 9/11 happened, and because I had done so well on my ASVAB, I got a phone call, and then another phone call, and then another phone call, and the Marine Corps was like, hey, we'll send you a waiver. And you know what stuck in my mind? It really pissed me off was the doc at the medical exam was like, son, we're afraid that you're going to be more of a liability than an asset. And that stuck with me. To this day, I remember that phrase, more of a liability than an asset. And it pissed me off. It really, really pissed me off. And it served as motivation after the fact. I was like, I'm not a liability. Yeah. I'm not a liability. I'm going to spend my entire life proving I'm not a liability. But I got these phone calls, and they kept calling me and promising me, you know, the moon, sun, and stars. And I told them no. And long and short from there was, I knew people knew me, and I had an interesting, as my work experience grew, I had a very interesting background that I was able to assist the country in other ways besides being United States Marine Corps. So you might ask yourself that as well. Maybe there's, you know, an agency that you can get in bed with and be an asset to them. If at 34, you know, you really want to go jump out of perfectly good airplanes, 34 is probably not the time to start that, you know, unless you're a civilian with a hobby. So there are other ways, as Squid was saying, there's other ways. You know how many departments could use one more good cop? You know, one more good firefighter, one more EMS technician. There are other ways to serve. So just because you and your buddy had this thing that broke apart 17 years ago, don't regret that. Number one, you got to make your peace with the regret. And then number two, you really have to be objective in looking at your situation. Eyes wide open, ears switched on. What is my next move, led by the Father, not led by wishing the past had been something other than what it was. Yeah. Does that make sense? Dude, don't signal mirror me. He's got a signal mirror hanging on his belt.
Keychain.
Did we hit it? Did we hit the high points?
I think so.
You got anything to add?
No.
Um,
Help me, I'm with Bear.
There's a certain, see, we gotta read up on this stuff. There's a certain way to arrange the sticks on the ground or your signal panel, depending on help I'm with Bear.
I just lay you down. You're my signal. Holy crap, we need to help that
Flap
guy.
your wings.
Crazy weather.
Crazy weather.
I don't remember thunderstorms in July, and we've had
Blowing in from the east.
blowing east to west, and we've had
2 or 3.
2 or 3, and today's expected again.
Yeah.
It's just wicked for your Bostonians.
It's the elite. It's the global elite. Believe me.
Weather machine.
It's the Illuminati. I've got an inside source, people. Believe me. So,
The El Illuminato.
El Illuminatos.
Should I tell that story?
No. Yes?
It's
Yeah,
it's
then
fun.
we got to put it. We should
Alright.
probably go back to work,
Yeah,
though.
we'll go back to work.
Okay.
So I joke with my 5-year-old because his belly laugh is just infectious. But they started asking me to help teach them Spanish. I don't know Spanish. Like I know gracias or whatever. So as a joke, I was like, they're like, what's I don't know, pick a word.
Rock.
What's rock in Spanish? El Rocco. I go and they repeat it and laugh. So I go to church this last weekend. Of course, baby Elijah and Mama are home. And I go to pick them up, and we got a real tight-knit
Yeah.
group of real people. Like, when I know he says, I'm not religious,
Yep.
I believe in Christ. Like,
Right.
These people are like that. And so I go to pick him up, and she's like, today I taught the Pentecost in Spanish. And in my head I went, because I could see him like saying El something O.
El
Right?
Pentecosto.
And, I'm like, oh. And she's like, and he understood some of it and spoke back to me. And I was like, oh, great. I mean, we did have him in a pre-K where he did actually learn Spanish, not dad Spanish, but
Actual.
that's our life.
El Españolo.
That's our goof is on all the time.
Constant.
I,
Constant. Because it helps alleviate the weight of the world.
Yeah.
You got to be able to laugh at yourself, and especially at others,
We're sanding 500 sticks.
Sanding 500 sticks of walnut that are 11 and 7/16 long, a 1/16 of an inch thick, and 3/4 of an inch wide. And we've got 482 left to sand.
That's why we're out here.
That's why we're out here shirking our responsibilities and shooting this video. But last thing, this is the tying the knot of the bow. We have 9 days left on the t-shirt campaign. If you want a t-shirt, please go get a t-shirt. We make like $3 a t-shirt on it, and maybe. Actually, at this point, we're taking a loss, and that's okay. We'll take the loss.
Don't care.
I want y'all to get something cool. So if you want to get something cool, you can go to kungfutaxidermy.com, and I'll put a link down in the description. My faith don't work no mo.
El description.
El description. Say bye, squid.
Bye, squid.
Bye, bear.